forgive the person who killed their child? Well, you're about to meet a mom who did. In 1993, 16-year-old O'Shea Israel shot and killed a 20-year-old man at a party. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. But 10 years into his sentence, the victim's mother actually reached out to him, and after O'Shea was released, their relationship grew even stronger. Now, O'Shea lives next door to her and considers her a second mom. Please welcome O'Shea Israel and Mary Johnson. Hello, Mary. Hi, O'Shea. Welcome to the show. So, O'Shea, we have to go back to that day where it was you were 16 years old, and Mary Johnson's son, Loramian, was also 16. You guys, you didn't know each other. You were at a party. What happened?
Well, he was 20.
He was 20, excuse me.
Yeah. We really don't get too much into the personal detail because it's a little too much.
Okay.
But long story short, egos. You know, he was there with his crew, his entourage. I came in with my crew, and egos start playing off each other right off top. And the thing about egos is they're just like eggs, neither any good until you break them. And we were going back and forth, you know, gesturing, posturing, you know, having a pissing contest, if we can say that. And things got taken too far, you know, and I wound up murdering their son.
Now, Mary, Loramian was your only son.
Yes.
So you were in the court every day during O'Shea's trial. You had to hear all of the details. What went through your mind? What did you want to see happen to O'Shea?
Well, at that time, O'Shea to me was an animal. And the end result that I wanted was that he would be in prison for the rest of his life. That they'd throw away the key and he would never get out.
Now, O'Shea, you ended up serving 25 years. 10 years into his sentence, Mary, you decided that you wanted to speak to him. What happened? And why? What made you want to see him 10 years later?
Well, we each have a calling on our life. And after the trial was over, one day I was studying and I opened up a book and it fell on a poem called Two Mothers. And the Two Mothers poem was about two angels in heaven. Because of the color they had on, they both knew that they were mothers on earth, and they began to talk about their children. And one mother said, you know, I would have taken my son's place on the cross if I could have. And the other mother fell on one knee and said, oh, well, you are she, the mother of Christ. And the mother of Christ lifted her up and kissed a tear from her cheek. And she said, now tell me of your son, so I may grieve with you. And she said, my son is Judas Iscariot. And the poem ended there. So I had to read it again. And the second time I read it, I heard what I want is for mothers of murdered children and mothers of children that have taken life to come together and heal together. And I thought, yeah, well, that can't happen. I don't want that to happen. That's just impossible. But because of who was within me, I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. But in order to do that, I figured I had to meet with O'Shea and make sure that I had forgiven him. I had told him at the end of the trial that I forgave him, but I really needed to make sure. And at that time that I did, it was just lip service. It was not for real.
Right. And O'Shea, when you heard that Mary wanted to speak with you, to see you, it's not something you wanted to do right off the bat, correct?
Of course not.
So how did you end up saying yes?
Well, initially said no because who wants to take responsibility, who wants to hold themselves accountable, didn't even really want to admit what I had done yet. I went through so many years just trying to avoid it, kept it tucked away. And then I started a transitional process in my life where I felt like I'm on my way home and I don't want to go home the same way that I left. And, you know, I started educating myself, started building with some of the other brothers in prison, you know, that was trying to better themselves. And I felt like once I go home, I want to be a man. I want people to see me as a man. I want them to see me as an asset rather than a liability. And part of what I had to do was acknowledge what I did, take control over that situation, and allow her to closure. Because had I been the one that was murdered, I would expect the person that, if they felt like they was man enough to take my life, then you should be man enough to face my mother. And I had to do that in order to make my next step.
So you say yes. What, for both of you, what was that first meeting like? Just walk us through that.
That meeting was beyond belief. I went there not knowing what was going to happen, but, you know, we had to go through a training, not a training, for a victim offender dialogue, you have to go through the Department of Corrections, and we had 4 2-hour meetings. They wanted to know why we wanted to do this. So I told them 3 things of the reason why I wanted to meet with him, but I really wasn't for sure, so I didn't know what to expect. When we got there, I knew that I wanted to know why he had taken my son's life. I wanted to know why he had changed his name, and I wanted to make sure I had forgiven him. Well, the only thing that we really ended up talking about was forgiveness. It was just unbelievable. And that day, I was just set free from all the hatred.
How did you get set free? O'Shea, she killed your only son. I mean, what do you say? I was set free. How did that happen?
You know what? Before I went to prison, I had to work on myself. I had to allow God to tell me what it was that I needed to do to truly forgive. And I didn't even know that this was going to take place when I went there. But I had to pray for him. I had to say I choose to forgive him. And there's just a process.
I want to interrupt you for a minute because I want to let the audience know that when you did get out, you guys got closer. O'Shea, you got closer to Mary. Forgiveness is one thing. O'Shea, how did you end up living next door to Mary? You're her neighbor now.
Right. Well, my landlord is actually on the advisory board with Mary, and they had a home welcoming for me once I came home.
Okay.
Her and a group of her friends, just wanted to welcome me back home and to make sure that I had a positive transition. And it was Brian Mogren, that's his name, it was his suggestion that, hey, let's support him the best way that we can to make sure that this transition goes smooth. And
yeah, I just believe you didn't talk about your necklace. It is really
I'm looking at the necklace. It's you, Mary. Can I touch it? It's you, Mary, and it's your son. And then if you turn it over, it's a picture of O'Shea, and you call O'Shea your second son.
Yes.
How do you do that?
He's my spiritual son. This is what God wants for me in my life. And I have to do what he has told me to do. He's told me to declare him as my spiritual son. And he is. And I tell you, it's God. It's the hand of God all over this. If it was just you.
How do you think your son, Lorraine, would feel about you calling O'Shea your son?
I sometimes hear him say, "You go, Mom."
Really?
Yes.
Do you ever look at O'Shea and think back to what was?
No, not really. I just, I have forgiven him. And, sometimes we forgive people and then we see them and we get that little nudge going on. No, that never happens.
Wow. Well, we have to go. Thank you so much for talking to us and inspiring us about forgiveness. Our thanks to Mary Johnson and O'Shea.
Yeah, okay, it's okay. All right. Or maybe it's better for when the two of them are there, so that it will be like this. Okay. I hope you got the picture of what has just happened. There is no need, there is no way this woman, Mary, now this woman here, she is the mother of a boy that was killed by this man. So this man killed the son of this lady. So this is the killer of her son. So what was the twist? Even though she was a Christian, but she was still harboring hatred, and she was wishing him dead. And wishing him death, even though he was a Christian. Even after she was a Christian, even after they had put him in prison, she was still wishing him dead. But while she was wishing him dead, she had no peace. Because she was always remembering that my son is dead. My son is dead and he is alive, even though he's in prison, but he's still alive. So any remembrance that he's still alive is bringing anger to her. She's becoming more mad every time she's thinking about her son and about the killer. Even though he's being punished, but anger. So she was dying. She couldn't live because of the anger. Is that the way it was? Can you make it, just two of them, make it big? No, not you. She. So even though, I thought that was the way it was. Okay. So even though she was already in jail, but 10 years after, she couldn't find life. But the life she was living was a life of crying, anger, hatred, even though she was a Christian. And if she had died like that, there's no guarantee that she would go to heaven. You see, bitterness, anger, unforgiveness doesn't give you anything. You don't score a mark at the end of the day. So what was needed? What was the key ingredient that was needed for her to be able to forgive the killer of the son and then end up adopting the killer as her own son and then living in the same house? So what could have happened? What is that main thing that is needed? You know what is that main thing that is needed? Self-denial. Why is it that she couldn't forgive? She couldn't deny herself the right for revenge. She needed to deny herself the right to bitterness. She needed to deny herself the right to anger and hatred. It was only after she was able to discover God, the love of God, and she was able to deny. You see, all of us, we don't like to deny ourselves anything. We want to have right. I have the right to be bitter. I have the right to be angry. I have the right to kill my son. I have the right. You know one thing that is more powerful than have the right? To that, I have the right to anger. I have the right to... One thing that is more powerful to all your rights is self-denial. Because self-denial leads you in the path of love. Self-denial leads you to love. When she was able to deny herself, she was able to love. Now, how did that happen? Let me show you how that happened. She was reading a book. And in that book that she was reading, that's why we must write normal book, good book, great books. Was it a poetry she was reading on a book or a book poem? I think it was a poem. She was reading a poetry, and that's why we must write the right kind of things. And the story in that poetry is amazing. I need two women to come. Two women to come. Hello. Hey.